How's it going, everyone? We are here for some FanDuel Week 6 defense. Sadly, there is no Vikings. They are on bye this week. As mentioned, on the DK one, we're missing the Cardinals and the Broncos, and we just got chipped away at this week. As with buys, some weeks we're going to be missing receivers, some weeks we're going to be missing running backs. Normally, you don't worry about like defenses, but what do you think of this week? I guess I should ask.
It's tough. I don't think we're going to see a ton of plus defenses. I think there's going to be a lot that kind of maybe sit in that 6 to 8 to 9 point range. I think that's going to be an average for a lot of these guys, and it's going to be about hitting on the right one. There might be one or two that go off and maybe get a touchdown, but yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of kind of mediocre play.
Doesn't it feel like this is a week where kind of like the Chiefs in week 2 or 3? Was it week 3? I feel like that's the type of week it's going to be on FanDuel, where like one team gets 30 points and you just like, I'd want to diversify, but I guess let's get into your cash game defenses here. Pittsburgh Steelers, how confident are you in them at 4,800 against the Dolphins?
I'm pretty confident. I mean, I'm looking at this Miami offense. No run game whatsoever. They're going to be forced to throw a ton anyway. You just look at this game and how it should play out. Steelers should be up a ton. Dolphins are coming off a week where they allowed 7 sacks to Tennessee. That's 3.4 games now, or 3.4 sacks allowed per game on the season. Bottom 3 total on the slate, so obviously that's a plus. They're allowing the 6th most fantasy points to defenses. I think 4,800 is a reasonable price. I know defenses have kind of been priced down. Obviously, you're looking now in the 4K range for like your bottom values. It used to be 4,500. So still 4,800 is not a bad price.
Agreed. And I think they are an interesting defense. In terms of ownership, I think people are going to be on the Steelers this week. Like general range, do you see them in like the 10 to 20% owned in those bigger GPPs or less? Like more or less around that area?
I think so. I think 15 to 20 is probably pretty reasonable. I think between them and the Bills, that's where you're going to see a highest. And then it's just going to be a lot of like 5, 6, 7, 8% teams after that. But yeah, I think these two, we'll talk about Buffalo. But yeah, I think those two are going to be the highest owned.
So we have a nice little rant on Torrey Smith in the DK defense. Do you want to get back into Torrey Smith and finish it off here, or are we just going to talk about the Bills?
I don't think there's any need to talk about Torrey Smith anymore. That was just that. Oh man, I was like just sitting there next to you at a bar, and you're just rambling on about. Your wife left you, your dog ran away, and that was like the equivalent of Torrey Smith. Like that's what it felt like.
You played the bartender in that one, but it's more like just you're sitting next to the dude, the guy that got too drunk at the bar, and you're like, all right, I'm leaving.
Yeah, I've had enough.
Be here anymore.
I gotta go home.
Yeah. I don't know if that's ever happened to you in a conversation before. Not you, everyone. But it's a really, really horrible feeling when you're really getting into something and someone just says, all right, I gotta go. Like, I'm done.
That was me last podcast, but I can't click out.
You gotta stay. So Kaepernick starting. What are you seeing with the Bills here?
So this puts a little damper, I think, on the Bills this week, but not enough to kind of shake me off of them in cash games. I mean, 4,800 is still a reasonable price. You look at this defense, and it's been running pretty well. I think with Buffalo's run-heavy approach, that does take a lot of the pressure off of the defense. 49ers are tied with the lowest total on the slate with the Browns. You look at the Bills, I mean, 2nd most fantasy points per game, and they're playing pretty well and going to get some guys back this week, allowing 17 points per game. I think it's reasonably safe. I mean, obviously, you do like Carlos Hyde. You do think Kaepernick could be good for a touchdown or two. In terms of tremendous upside for the 49ers, I think it's going to be pretty capped. I think this is one of those teams where it's probably going to be in that 7 to 10 point range, which I think is going to be what you need from your defense this week. And I think the Bills can give you that.
Yeah, I certainly agree. Really, their only passing game is to Jeremy Curley, and I know the Bills have been giving up some big plays. I kind of like some of their corners, especially against Jeremy Curley. So, yeah. In terms of GPPs, we're kind of looking at some of the similar guys here. Um, but Titans, intriguing. Elaborate.
One at home. I mean, you look at this total. I don't expect the Browns to really do anything. Tennessee's run defense is pretty solid. Obviously, Isaiah Crowell, Duke Johnson. I think those are a focal point of the offense. But you're also looking. I mean, they haven't been that bad. I mean, they've kind of limited some decent offenses that you expect to put up points against the Titans, but haven't. As I mentioned, they're tied with the lowest total on the slates. With the Niners, Browns, they're on their sixth or seventh quarterback already. Basically, you have Terrell Pryor to worry about, and that's about it. I just think if the Titans can run this game and run Murray and Mariota can be efficient, Browns are going to have a lot of 3-and-outs, going to have a lot of down kind of possessions, and their offensive line is still pretty abysmal. So I could see another kind of high sack game from Tennessee, who are coming off a pretty good week.
Yeah, I think that's intriguing. And then, Charlie Whitehurst released. They weren't very happy with his, what he
Who would
brought to
be?
the table. I mean, at least keep him around. I don't even know what they're gonna do. I haven't checked on Cody Kessler's status, but regardless, I think the point being, I like this play. My only question to you: where are you at with DeMarco Murray with them? I mean, I know I like the Bills with McCoy and the Rams with Gurley. Is DeMarco Murray essential to this Titans defense, or is it not necessarily connected?
I think it's a good stacking play. I don't think you have to pair them together, but just because I think there's some passing games you want to go after, I don't think, if you're playing Pittsburgh, it's going to be obviously tough to get Murray and a Titans defense in there together. But I think it's an intriguing way to go in GPPs. You play that correlation. You look at the Titans; they are projected for over 25 points. So at home, I can kind of really see this one playing out kind of how it did last week. Murray got his touches. Mariota played well. Defense played well. It's another matchup where they can kind of continue to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess we can move on here because the Titans Browns, I mean, I forget who was joking around on Twitter, but like if that game just literally if they just okay, this game's canceled and you are out of the NFL now, like I think we might be better off.
We need, I mean, like soccer, I mean, we need relegation.
We
Bottom three
really
teams in
do.
the league get dropped out of the league.
Go to CFL or something, yeah.
Yeah.
Um Eagles against the Redskins. I wrote them up too. Intriguing to say the least, coming off a down week against the Lions. I think they're better than that. So against this Redskins team with Kirk Cousins throwing 30% in the red zone, you know.
That's the thing. I mean, he's throwing a ton. He's not being super efficient in the red zone as well. You look at the Eagles secondary. I like him a lot. Football Outsiders is really high on him. Had a good week against the Lions passing game for guys not named Theo Riddick. I mean, that was really the only damage they had. On the road, you got to worry about that a little bit. Overall, though, I mean, I could see Cousins really having a 2 to 3 turnover type day, and seeing the Eagles. I mean, obviously they're dangerous in the special teams as well. They can get some takeaways, not allowing a lot of yards. I mean, 266 yards per game. They're still very efficient in getting the job done. So 4,500, really nice price for them. Still can't really trust it, but the upside's certainly there.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Last one here. I think we have a pretty similar read on the Ravens defense. What are you looking at against this, Giants offense or whatever it is right now?
No run game. It's all pass. It's Bobby Rainey. It's Eli Manning, as you pointed out, doesn't quite look right. It's a Ravens defense that I like. I mean, there are some big time playmakers on that side of the ball. They're looking pretty well. Over 1.5 takeaways per game. I think Eli Manning is still turnover prone at times, allowing 17.6 points per game, allowing 266 yards per game. So I mean, they're kind of on par with the Eagles at this point in terms of what they're doing. We're just kind of waiting for that big game. You look at the Giants' offensive line; it didn't look great last week. I'm kind of curious to see if that kind of continues over, because that would mean a couple extra points. But I think the Ravens on the road here, I'm not really buying the 24 team total there for New York. I think it should be a little bit lower.
Definitely agree. I think these are, five core defensive plays. And uh, unlike last week, where I felt like you could really narrow it down to two or three, this one feels like, I could legitimately see myself using all these teams and really correlating it with the running backs that I'm constructing my lineups with. So certainly something to think about. Are there any other parting shots you want to get out there before we head out?
Um, I think the Detroit LA game is interesting on both sides.
Hmm.
I think both of those offenses are just so volatile that you don't know what you're going to get from them. In Detroit, you can make a case for Detroit again. I think that's a deep GPP team, and you don't really see their price too high. So that's a little bit different from this core here.
I'm really glad that you were nice enough not to say anything about my Beanie Wells jersey. That was very kind of you.
Well,
Anyway, no,
we
we
talked
gotta
before the show, so
Um, yeah. So if you like what we're doing here, or you think, I'm tolerable in terms of my comedic ability, uh, give us a like and subscribe. If you want to check out this article, certainly head to dailyfantasycafe.com. As always, we're throwing out content pretty consistently all week there. We got a bunch of good writers, so certainly check that out. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you guys in week 7.